everybody, and welcome back to the Kelly Green Hour. And if you're asking yourself, didn't I just see these guys? Yes, 2 days ago, we were here around this time, and we did our first round, our annual first round mock draft, as we went through the 32 picks in round number one, which will be happening in 24, 48, 72, about 73 hours from now. In Detroit, Michigan, the NFL draft will be kicking off. I'm your host, LG Harrell. And as always, I am joined by my co-host, Connor Donald. Connor, what's up, bud?
Well, I'm excited to finally stop seeing mock draft, 1.0, 3.0. Some people are up to like mock draft 20.0. So I'm glad the mock drafts are done because as me and you both point out, we may do some for fun ones behind the scenes. We don't really post them and we only come on and do the first round mock and this mock because everyone knows nobody's going to be right at all. No. So we already know. I mean, it gets clicks, but we're not big mock draft people. But we have to throw out our 2 cents right at mock draft season like this. And I'm excited that it's finally NFL draft week. I think this is going to be, and I even noted it on Saturday night. That, I think this will be an unpredictable one. I think there's going to be at least 2 or 3 trades in the top 10. Probably see 4 or 5 in the first round. It's I wouldn't be surprised if it's like a record-setting one for trades because it's such a unique draft class to look at, and it's not the world's deepest draft class, just that very specific position. So it's going to be really interesting to see how it all breaks down, especially for our boy Howie Roseman.
Yeah, and there's that rumor, which before we jump into that, as always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJ Harrell54. Follow Edge of Philly Sports on Twitter, YouTube, or Facebook at Edge of Philly Sports. And if you're tuning in live, let us know your thoughts in the chat. You can give us your picks as we go through each round, and then give us a thumbs up, thumbs down for each of ours. At the end of this, we will put our mocks out on Twitter on the Kelly Green Hour Facebook page, and you can vote to see who had the better mock draft. It wouldn't surprise me if we had a couple similar. We have a comment already. Mr. Crockpot, what's going on? What's more likely? Eagles trade back, stay put, or trade up, stay put, or trade back. So just so people know or aware, we don't incorporate trades into our mock drafts. It's just too much, too time consuming. I don't feel like dealing with all that. We're never ever going to get them right then. We're going to do picks as is. The Eagles have 8 picks. We're going to pick them at 22, 50, 53, 120, 161, 171, 172, and 210. And this is kind of a good segue for Mr. Crockpot. There was a report that came out that Howie's doing his due diligence, making the phone calls, and if a certain potential cornerback drops or edge rusher drops or an offensive lineman drops, he's just kind of putting feelers out there to see what he would need to trade to move up. Howie is Mr. Negotiator. Howie doesn't like to stay put. He always wants to make a move. I'm pretty sure that they've traded up for Jordan Davis. They traded up for Jalen Carter. They traded up for Devontae Smith. They didn't trade up for Jalen Reagor. I wish they would have traded that for something because we wouldn't have gotten Reagor probably. But Howie is going to make a move. That's what he does. So I think what's more likely, in my opinion, that the Eagles are going to trade up. Somebody's going to drop that they like and need a position of need, and that could be the best at that position, and Howie's going to go get them. Who cares about – I know what was the Rams slogan for all those years? F them picks, because they didn't have a first round – they haven't had a first-round pick since 2016, and they're finally going to have one this year. F them picks for the future. Like, this is a Super Bowl roster, potential roster now. The window is small now. If you know if there's a player that you want that you think can help immediately, go get them and figure it out later. Howie is a mastermind when it comes to this. He'll recoup picks later on or down the line. He's pretty much got a lifetime contract as the general manager. So F them picks this year or F them picks in a couple of years. If you want a Terry and Arter, if you want a Latu, if you want a JC Latham and they're dropping and they're in range, go get them.
Yeah, I agree with you. If they're going to do anything, they're going to trade up because, I mean, everything you see is the names that he's really interested in and that he wants. He's going to have to move up to get them. A Terry and Arnold, a Kenyon Mitchell, I mean, there's a lot of talk about, he's not leaving Thursday night without an Alabama player. Dallas Turner's going to go as a top 10 pick. Terry Arnold's probably going as a top 15, 16 pick. You could have Kool-Aid McKinstry, and I think that you could stay put for Kool-Aid McKinstry, but of course, or JC Latham. Obviously, those are the four names of Alabama players who are likely going in the first round, who he likely wouldn't leave Thursday night with, and who I honestly wouldn't be disappointed if we left with either of them. I think the one who's going to cost you the most, Dallas Turner. That would be one that you have to get into the top 10.
Not to cut you off. Speaking, did you see on the Edge of Philly Sports YouTube page, there was a who's the first defensive player that's going to be drafted? And Dallas Turner wasn't named. He's going to be the first defensive player drafted. I'm like almost 95% positive. And I had to put my 2 cents in.
It's funny because I saw a tweet before we came on the air, and it was saying the oldest defensive player, first defensive player off the board in the last, and it looked at the last 7 or 8 years, has not been over the age of 21. And there are, of the 4 top defensive players, 2 of them are over the age of 23. One of them is under the age of 21, Dallas Turner. And then there's another one who's kind of in the middle of that gap. So it kind of looks on paper like you're probably, like, when you think about it, like Latu's 23 and a half years old. Like, his first snap in the NFL, he's going to be almost 24 years old. Like, it's crazy to think about the age that some of these people are going to be when they come out. And we have the NIL to thank for that, because a lot of people are staying in college longer.
Latu, didn't he have injury issues?
He did. He
stopped playing for a year or something like that.
Yeah, because he got a neck fusion surgery, which is obviously something else that people are talking about. But it just goes to show, like, you kind of have to keep an eye on it. Like, age does matter, especially when you're looking at, like, these guys in the first round, they're going to get that 5th-year option and stuff. So that, I mean, you drag a guy like Latu out for 5 years, he's going to be 28, 29 years old by the time you have to give him a second contract. And you don't see that much in the NFL right now. You see 25, 26-year-olds getting their second contract. So
I think for an edge player, it's a little bit different. For other positions, I would agree with you there. So before we jump into the mock draft, there was a report that came out that you had posted into our group chat of the Falcons and the Eagles. There's a resolution coming to the NFL's investigation into the Falcons and Eagles tampering claims. Falcons with Kirk Cousins, Eagles with Saquon Barkley. I think of the two, the one that's more egregious was the Falcons and Cousins, because he was in their facility before, during that tampering period. You can only make contact with the agent, and he was in their facility on Monday or whatever it was, Monday or Tuesday. So yeah, that they're definitely, I think, going to get hammered. James Franklin is an idiot. I hate Penn State as it is, and James Franklin didn't help matters when he made that comment that he made. So we'll see what happens. I don't think the Eagles did anything wrong. Franklin just misinterpreted what was said before he opened his big mouth. But what are your thoughts? What do you think is going to happen? Do you think that the NFL is going to come down hard on the Eagles? I think they're going to come down on the Falcons harder than they are the Eagles. What do you think the penalty will be?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see what this investigation led them to, whether it's just these comments that they're going to take from Franklin and believe and run with as the proof, or if they actually found some true tampering that happened. I mean, let's be realistic. How quickly a lot of these players end up signing contracts, there's no way you're going to tell me that the majority does not have some sort of tampering happen. It just doesn't make sense to me that more tampering isn't being found out in this league. I think, yeah, like you said, the Falcons are going to get a major hammer on Kirk Cousins. I mean, we saw in the Brady and Belichick thing with the Miami Dolphins cost them a first-round pick, I think, and some. I don't know if it'll get to that extent because, they got the double whammy of going for a head coach and going for a player. But I mean, I could see it definitely being a day 2 pick plus for the Falcons. For the Eagles, I think it's going to be a day 3 pick. I just don't see this being something as big because I don't know if the proof is as much going to be there for the Eagles. But I mean, like you said before we came on, we were talking and you said just find them. And I just said, even if you find them $1 million, that's a penny for these for these owners to pay if they're getting Saquon Barkley or Kirk Cousins, if the Falcons believe Kirk Cousins may be the answer. Like, okay, it's nothing for them to pay that. So the way you have to punish is, I guess, taking draft picks away and hurting the way that a team can possibly build. And I mean, I hope it's a day 3 pick. If it's a day 2 pick, I mean, I think that might be a little egregious and a little extreme by the NFL, but I know that they really want to stop this tampering. So we'll see what happens.
If it's a day 2 pick, the Eagles don't have a 3rd rounder, so it could potentially be next year. They could do something about that. If it's a day 3,
I don't think the punishment will be handed down to affect this year's draft. I think it'll be for 2025 and 2026 anyways, but
yeah,
it's too like you can't make the announcement Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, like draft day, and say, yeah, we're taking one of your picks away that you're going to use in the next 48 hours.
Well, I mean, last year I feel like it was draft day. Now it was a swap of picks, so it's a little different, I guess. But when the Eagles and Cardinals had to swap picks because of the tampering for Jonathan Gannon, I felt like that was the day of the draft.
That definitely was.
So they can't. I mean, it's I said this to a friend before. I was like, it's the NFL's world. We're just living in it. Like the NFL is going to have a Wednesday, because Christmas is on a Wednesday next year. There's going to be 2 games on Wednesday. So like the NFL can do what it wants when it wants. It doesn't really matter, and we're just all going to live with it. That's pretty much what we're coming down to.
It's so true. Like the NFLPA is sitting there almost every year saying, how did we not put this in our contract? How did we not put? They're getting bullied by the NFL, the league, the Players Association into doing everything and anything that they want. And I mean, the money's there, but I mean, is it worth everything that ends up happening in life? And some of these guys play for 5 years and then they're done and like, half disabled for life. I mean, I feel the NFLPA could do their players a little more justice, but like you said, it's the NFL's world and the players are just playing in it and we're just living in it.
It's the most popular sport in America. So, and I don't see that going away anytime soon. Remember the NBA used to own Christmas Day, and well, that's no longer a thing. One NFL game does more than all 5 NBA games combined. So like, there's no point in even NBA should just not start their season until after the new year and shorten the season and whatever. That's a totally different story for a different day. Because NBA is a joke of a league. All right. So we are here to do our Eagles only mock draft. Again, the rules, there's no trades. We both ran 3 or 4 of our own, separately. We ran 3 or 4 mocks and went with the one we thought was the best. And we'll be interested to see how many are similar. How many of our picks are similar. So, Connor, do you want to get us started in the first round with the 22nd pick in the 2024 NFL Draft? The Philadelphia Eagles select.
I'm going with the guy you took Saturday night, Alabama cornerback Kool-Aid McKinstry. I mean, there's something about, if you're going to stay firm at this pick, like last year, Kool-Aid McKinstry was like the consensus CB1. And now all of a sudden he's down to like CB3. Some people are talking about him like, maybe he's a CB4 and stuff just because they like other players. I'm going to go with that's going to be a value pick if Howie can sit for him there and get Kool-Aid McKinstry. There's something about him, his attitude, his swagger, how he carries himself, how he was able to play. Everybody has games. You can pinpoint certain games or big moments. Everyone has those moments that you can pinpoint that could drop someone's value. But I think Kool-Aid McKinstry would be a great pick here. I do believe the rumors that he really wants to come out with that rumor of how he was to trade up. He wants a cornerback, or teams believe he wants a cornerback. I do believe that he wants a cornerback and he wants Terrion Arnold or he wants Kool-Aid McKinstry. And if Terrion Arnold drops, and the benefit of the doubt this year is you definitely have 4 quarterbacks going likely in the top 10. So that leaves a lot of space for Terrion Arnold to drop into that 10 to 15 range, and it costs you a lot less to move from 22 to 12 through 15 than it would have been to maybe get all the way up into the 6 through 10 range. So if we're sitting here, which we got to sit here, we're not doing any trades, it's Kool-Aid McKinstry for me.
Yeah, and you had mentioned that there's going to be 4 quarterbacks going in the top 10. That only helps the Eagles out, like you just said, because there's going to be a lot of skill position players dropping. and one could potentially hit that 15 through 20 range, which I think will be a sweet spot for Howie to trade up. There was a mock draft done, I think, on ESPN.com and had the Eagles jumping from 22 to 12 for Terrion Arnold. That's a lot, jumping up 10 spots, but I don't know if Howie's going to do it. I mean, he always has the capital to do it. I'm right there with you. I took with the 22nd pick in the first round, Kool-Aid McKinstry, cornerback out of Alabama. I picked him on Saturday for the Eagles. Look, the Eagles haven't picked a cornerback in the first round since 2002 in Lito Shepherd. That year they took Shepherd, Sheldon Brown, and Michael Lewis. They redid their secondary to put around Brian Dawkins. And it was the best secondary in football for like 3 or 4 years. So I think the Eagles might attempt to start building that again. They have Darius Slay. They have James Bradbury, who 50-50 shot that he's on the roster come week 1 when they're in Brazil. But McKinstry is a versatile guy. He's got a lot of speed. He's got a lot. He can hit. He can play the run, play the pass, play zone, play man, and he can return punts. Like, he has the speed. He has the athleticism. With the new kickoff rules, maybe put him back there and see what happens. So I love the Kool-Aid McKinstry pick. I think he's going to be a difference maker in the NFL, and I hope the Eagles are the team that selects him.
I mean, I agree. I mean, we both. This is probably going to be one of, if not the only pick that we both agree on. And I think we're both in agreement that you no matter what the outcome of the situation with James Bradbury is, and the Darius Slay situation, you have to get younger. You have to start building for the future. Darius Slay is 33. You just feel that cliff coming, and it's a matter of if not when. And James Bradbury, well, apparently he only does well during even numbered seasons, so maybe he'll do better this season to be still on the roster. Who knows? But at the end of the day, you have to get cheaper and you have to get younger at the cornerback position. And I think Howie is starting to realize, especially in a passing league, that he definitely needs to start looking at that position closer.
I agree. Slay and Bradbury, 33 and 31, respectively, coming into the season. So get younger. Who knows if Isaiah Rodgers is going to get reinstated? Probably will, but that hasn't happened yet. They got Ringo, they have Ricks, they have McPherson. Start bringing in young talent. So McKinstry in the first round. All right, let's go to round number 2, where the Eagles have 2 picks. At pick number 50 in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Philadelphia Eagles are going to select Edgerrin Cooper, linebacker from Texas A&M. And this is a shock. He had a really good combine. And then there was all the talk that he's going to be the first linebacker off the board, and he's going to be a first-round pick. Well, every mock draft that I've seen has him going in the second round around this spot. If I'm the Eagles, I'm running up there. You draft Cooper, you pair him with Devin White and Nakobe Dean. I feel a lot better about our linebacker situation than I have in year past. I do think the Eagles could still potentially sign Zach Cunningham to bring him in as a depth piece, because he was all right last year for what we had. He was the best linebacker, but that doesn't really say much. But if the Eagles can get Edgerrin Cooper at number 50, I mean, I'm elated. I'm running up to the podium. So Edgerrin Cooper, linebacker, Texas A&M, with the second round pick.
Well, I hope it gets better after this pick, because we're just going to bore people, because I got at pick 50 Edgerrin Cooper as well. I mean, I think I always felt he was the LB1. Peyton Wilson tested out of his mind, and a lot of people are kind of viewing him more as the LB1. I even took him in the first round of our first round mock draft and sent him to the Arizona Cardinals. I mean, Peyton Wilson also comes with some major risk, because he's had 3 or 4 major injuries over his college career and his high school career. So that could drop him down. Obviously, Jeremiah Trotter is completely free falling down draft boards at this point, where he used to be mock drafted in the second round. I mean, I think he's looking more like, honestly, maybe an early day 3 pick at the rate that the drop is happening. Although I did watch Greg Cosell talk about him on the Ross Tucker podcast, I think it was today, and he spoke very highly of him. That could go any direction, but there's one thing that we are positive and know for sure about. It is not a good linebacker class. You have to essentially get Edgerrin Cooper or Peyton Wilson, or then it starts to free fall. And I've actually, there's a lot of good talk about Junior Colson. So, I mean, after about 5 linebackers, it's going to be a free fall. And though you know that those linebackers are going to start to run probably 5 will go on day 4, 5 will go on day 2, and then you may not see many more for the rest of the draft because it's just not that type of class. But I do think Cooper's the better linebacker. He's the physical linebacker. He's got the great athletic traits. He's got the things that we need. He can be the quarterback spy. He can blitz. He can do a little bit of everything. He's not. I mean, you don't expect anyone to be amazing in coverage as a linebacker, but he's tolerable in coverage. And we have been terrible at the linebacker position for years as far as coverage goes. So it'll be interesting to see. Michael brings up Trevin Wallace, who they actually had a top 30 visit. I think he's a Kentucky linebacker. I mean, he's pretty good. It's not a great linebacker class. If we're going to get one, or if he's going to make the move that's going to be worthwhile for this roster, it's probably going to have to happen on day 2.
Yeah, most likely. And the one thing Howie said, I think it was last week, that they legacy players, for a lack of a better term, in guys that used to play here and have played. So, and Trot Jr. would fit that. But if he does move to the third day, you never know. The Eagles do have a 4th rounder, 3/5, so they could potentially, if they wanted to, move up and take Trotter if they thought it was necessary. But as long as he doesn't end up with the Cowboys, I'm fine. Hopefully Trotter doesn't go there. All right. So in the second round, they also have the 53rd pick. So 3 picks later, who do you have the Eagles taking, Connor?
I have the Eagles taking Kansas edge Austin Booker. I just see zero chance that he leaves day 1 or day 2 without an edge. There's a need at the edge position with Hassan Reddick being out. What's going to happen with Josh Sweat after this year? Austin Booker, to me, screams the type of edge player that Howie would like to take. He's got all the athletic traits. He's got so much to like about his game. Obviously, he's a smaller edge, kind of something that Howie also likes to roll with, is a smaller edge rusher. He's going to be like the stand-up linebacker edge rusher. And there's just so much to like about his game. And I mean, you read about like a guy like Lance Zierlein says he's probably too high on the guy, but there's so much potential in the game for Booker. And that just screams the type of guy Howie would take if he had the opportunity to take him. And since I don't think he leaves day 1 with an edge, I do think it's going to happen on day 2. And Austin Booker is probably one of my favorites for day 2.
Okay. I have the Philadelphia Eagles selecting Cooper Beebe, offensive lineman, guard out of Kansas State. Look, we know the Eagles have a hole at right guard. I think right now the leader in the clubhouse is Tyler Steen, but the Eagles are going to bring in somebody to compete with him. And Beebe is a name that I've been seeing a lot out there that could potentially go to the Eagles. And he could slot right in at right guard. This year is not necessarily a time when the Eagles have to get Lane Johnson's replacement. We know they did it with Kelsey in back-to-back years with Dickerson and Juergens. But if you have the opportunity to get Cooper Beebe at 53, I think you take him and you slot him in at right guard and keep this offensive line mowing guys down for Saquon Barkley.
I like the pick. I saw Cooper Beebe there. I mean, if you have the opportunity to just shore up right guard, while you may have a inkling of confidence in some of the names that you have on roster, you don't necessarily have to go that direction. We know we've seen what we have in some of these guys. And if you're considering the move, obviously they may not be the perfect answer and they may not be the answer that you want. It doesn't hurt, as we've seen in the past, to have lots of offensive line depth from both one tackle to the other tackle. And it helps to have versatility as well. Look at Andre Dillard went off and ended up being one of the worst tackles in the NFL last season for Tennessee. And we got out from under him. And I believe we actually got a comp pick in return for him. So we've seen in the past that you can get comp picks and you can get that compensation. And we just have Jeff Stoutland's just an incredible offensive line coach and can make so many guys look so good. And we've seen a lot of guys get paid and come out from under his tutelage and do extremely well elsewhere as well. So we just know we got the best developer of offensive line talent, and it doesn't hurt to have more and more and more.
I definitely agree there. All right. So I have McKinstry, Cooper, and Beebe in the first 3 picks. You have McKinstry, Cooper, and Booker in the first 3 picks. So let's go to day 3, where the Eagles have 5 picks as of right now. And again, they're definitely gonna wheel and deal and make some moves, but we're not doing trades in our mock draft. So at pick number 120, I have the Philadelphia Eagles selecting Kyrie Jackson, cornerback out of Oregon. Look, I mentioned it earlier. 2002, Lito Shepherd, Sheldon Brown, Michael Lewis eventually at the safety position. They remade their secondary. This could be an opportunity. Jackson started out at Alabama and then went to Oregon. Now, he's not going to have to come in and play right away. If he had to play, I think that he would be okay. But this is a guy that you can learn behind Slay. And then, in a year or two, potentially pair him with McKinstry and Ringo and Ricks. Like, there's just the potential that next year's cornerback room is going to be guys like 22, 23 years and younger. Like, it's going to be a young but talented room. And I think Kyrie Jackson has the potential to be a guy that the Eagles can go to late in the year if needed, but definitely in years later. So this is like a now move, but also a move for when Slay and Bradbury are gone, because that's going to happen. Slay and Bradbury aren't going to be here probably after this year. So let's get younger and build the room up and get them some experience. And Kyrie Jackson out of Oregon is going to be a guy that to watch for the Eagles.
Yeah, I like the pick. I mean, it wouldn't hurt. I did a couple mock drafts where I had multiple cornerbacks going. I don't have multiple cornerbacks in my mock draft that I ended up settling on. So with pick 120 for me, I went and I got the wide receiver 3 for this roster, because we know, despite the signings that happened, there's still a need. There's no reason to believe that they're just going to settle on Paris Campbell and Devontae Parker. But one of them likely, I think, will make the roster. But I am going with another Alabama product, an Alabama wide receiver, Jermaine Burton, at pick 120 for the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, this is a guy who's not going to step in and be a wide receiver one, not necessarily even going to step in and ever be a wide receiver 2 for this team. But he has been a guy who I feel has been overshadowed because he's been a guy who's been at the back of the line or closer to the back of the line for targets and stuff, as far as the teams he's been on with Georgia and with Alabama. He's never had to be that guy, but he's done an incredible job in being the wide receiver 3 or a very low-end wide receiver 2 for a team. Last year, he actually led the team with 798 receiving yards, 8 receiving touchdowns, and 39 receptions, which equated to 20.5 per reception. He's a big play waiting to happen. He's a guy he's got decent speed. He's got good size. I feel he can jump in and be a really good piece. He's got great appeal. He's a great red zone threat. There's a stat out there. He had a touchdown pass every 5.7 grabs in his college career. So he's a guy who's got nose for the end zone. He can find the end zone, and that's the type of player that we just haven't had. And one of the things is, yes, you have this amazing duo of A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, but every year it's the what if they ever get injured? You don't want to see it. You don't want to wish it to happen, but what if it happens? We have never had anybody that I can sit there and be overly confident in for this offense. Good thing is, we have Dallas Goedert, we have Saquon Barkley. Who knows what other weapons are still to come through the draft and the post-draft process. But you still want to make sure that you have some talent there. And I think Jermaine Burton would be a great talent. And at this spot is where I found myself multiple times taking the wide receiver 3. But Jermaine Burton was the one I liked the most.
All right, I'm never going to deny getting an Alabama guy. I won't lie there. All right, let's go to the 5th round where the Eagles have 3 picks. Pick number 161. So with pick number 161 in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Philadelphia Eagles select. Go ahead, Connor.
I have potential replacement for Lane Johnson in the future. Penn State's offensive tackle, Caden Wallace, the other Penn State offensive tackle. I mean, he kind of got overshadowed because of, I'm not even going to give a shot at his name, but he's going to go in the first round, the other Penn State left tackle. And Wallace, he's played right tackle for pretty much all of his career, including last season, started all 13 games at the right tackle position, received the honorable mention for the All Big Ten Conference. he's a guy who, I mean, he could be considered tackle or guard. You could move him where you want him. This could be a guy who you could kick inside and put at guard and play beside Lane Johnson for the next year or two and prepare to replace him and then kick him back outside at the end of it. But he's a guy who I mean, I really like. I think he displayed some things to enjoy on tape, and he's got some good technique to his game. So, I mean, it doesn't have to be a first-round pick to necessarily potentially replace Lane Johnson. But in this position, I take a guy who could move into right guard. If he succeeds at right guard, you can take another shot at right tackle, or there's a chance you can move him outside to right tackle, even in a situation where Lane Johnson might get hurt, and see what you have in him. But I think he could be an underrated offensive tackle pick. And this seems to be the area where it's time to probably start taking. You took it in the last pick. I'm taking in this pick that shot at getting an offensive lineman in the building.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Penn State, but you gotta do what you gotta do. With the 161st pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Philadelphia Eagles select Kenny Logan Jr., safety out of Kansas. I've mentioned it a couple times already. Rebuilding the secondary. The Eagles have CJ, GJ, Reed Blankenship, an injured Sidney Brown right now at safety. You have to add pieces. I still potentially think Justin Simmons is going to be here. I don't know when, but I think that the longer he's out there, there's a good chance of him coming here if Vic Fangio has any say. But you need to get younger there as well. You would need to get some youth there as well. And I think Kenny Logan Jr. out of Kansas, he pretty much was all over the field for Kansas, and he only had one. He ran a slow 40, but he's a safety. You don't really have to be all that fast. I think he ran like a 4.6, 4.7. But I think being able to draft Kenny Logan to pair with McKinstry, and he could be good on special teams too. A lot of these guys are potentially going to be special teams, to start. And the Eagles had one of the better special teams last year, so they want to continue that. So I'm going with Kenny Logan Jr.
I like it.
So with the second pick in the 5th round at 171, the Philadelphia Eagles select Eric All, tight end out of Iowa. This is around Iowa seems to be tight end U, for one thing. And this is around the time when the Eagles drafted Dallas, not this part of the round, but in terms of age-wise for Zach Ertz, when they drafted Dallas Goedert to be the tight end 2 and to eventually succeed Ertz. Now, I don't think Eric All is going to necessarily, be tight end 2 this year. I think that'll be CJ Uzomah. But you want to have a body in there. Jack Stahl's gone. Grant Calcaterra has those, injury issues in terms of the concussions. And Albert O, they re-signed him, but he didn't really play all that much last year. But so get younger at tight end. You never know how much longer you have with Dallas Goedert. So I'm going Eric All, tight end out of Iowa.
I looked at Eric All a couple times in my mock drafts. I was never able to pull the trigger on him, but I mean, eventually, I feel like with one of these picks, while I don't have a tight end, just a bit of a spoiler alert, I did in a couple of mock drafts have tight ends, because I do agree with you. I do think that I wouldn't be surprised if he leaves this draft with a tight end. I looked at Theo Johnson, Penn State again. I know you don't like that. Looked at him a number of times. So there's a couple of guys that I've looked at, and I think the tight end, he definitely addresses in some way. Obviously, Jack Stahl's out of the picture, and what we have behind Dallas Goedert hasn't been anything to really get you too excited. Just like you said, Alberto's back on a futures contract. We're going to see if they even decide to keep him on the roster, but they must see something in him, because they kept him hanging around on the roster for the remainder of the season once they got him.
They did the same with Rashad Penny.
Exactly. So you just don't know. But for me here at pick number 171, I went the safety route from Oregon State, Ketan Oladapo, I think is his name, maybe. He's got good size. He's got good strength. He's got good toughness. He's got enough ability to cover. It's nothing flashy. It's nothing sexy. But if you wanted something that was really going to fix the safety position, it would have probably happened earlier. But I don't hate Reed Blankenship and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson as our starting safeties. I know you have different thoughts on Reed Blankenship, but getting Chauncey Gardner-Johnson back kind of makes it so safety doesn't have to be a priority need, but you definitely need to kind of fill in behind him. And we know that Howie likes to take his shots later in the draft on safeties. It's how he's gotten some of this, like Reed Blankenship's and some of the other success stories he's had at the safety position in the past. So I'm going with Ketan Oladapo here at 171.
I'm not even going to attempt to try to spell that. I was writing down your picks, but yeah, I'm not even going to attempt. All right, so the Eagles have the very next pick in the 5th round at 172. Go ahead, Connor.
I am going with Northern Iowa defensive lineman Christian Boyd on this one. I'm not full on confident that, the defensive line is fully addressed. And we move into 3-4. We still know that the best thing that we ever see along that defensive line is a healthy rotation of players. You know that, you're not going to be able to have Milton Williams, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter out there 100% of the time. You just know that. So you need to get that healthy rotation. And we got a little bit of rotational pieces in behind, but I think that we can definitely shore it up a little bit more. So I am going with Christian Boyd. He's got some intangibles that you like to see. He's got some athleticism to his game. He's explosive. He's got the good pass rushing ability. So I'd be interested to see what you can get in a guy like him and develop in a guy like him. So I'm going with Christian Boyd.
Guess what?
We have another pick the same.
Yep, I have Christian Boyd, defensive tackle of the Northern Iowa, going to the Philadelphia Eagles. Fletcher Cox retired. We know we have Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Milton Williams. They have Mojo. What's the Aroma, right? I always forget his name.
Ojoma.
Yeah, Ojoma.
Yes, Ojoma.
And Tuialalopa. They do have bodies there, but it's going to be tough to replace what Fletcher Cox did for the Eagles over the last 12 years or whatever. But last year he was the best player, and everybody thought that he was going to be slowing down, but he probably had another year or two left. For him to retire on his own terms and not having played in another uniform is really awesome to see. But bringing in Boyd, like you said, he's not going to have to come in and contribute right away. So he's going to be able to kind of get the NFL body together, and when he gets out there, be a disruptor. So I think Boyd's would be a really good pick for the Eagles in the 5th round. And
they had I believe they had a very early top 30 visit with Christian Boyd too. So it shows they think highly of him. And they definitely like him. And I mean, he fits the mold of what you would think that Howie would take in a project defensive lineman. Has the athleticism, has the size, has some things to like about him. And moving to 3-4, he probably is a guy that's not going to be your nose tackle, but he can probably play defensive tackle, or he can play the edge position on the other side of the nose tackle, because I think at nose tackle, it's quite clear it's Jalen Carter, and then you're going to flank him with guys. And right now that looks like Jordan Davis and then Milton Williams.
And hopefully Carter can stay. He started off the season really well, but then just hit a wall and fell off. So hopefully he can stay up. And it's going to be up to Brandon Graham. And I know there's not really the vet at the defensive tackle position like Fletcher Cox to kind of be in his ear. So it'll be interesting to see. Hopefully Carter and Davis can bounce off each other and whatnot. So
time for UFL football, says Jordan Davis bust. I'm going to say I don't think he's a bust, but I don't think he's going to be the guy you can trust for 70, 80% of the snaps ever. I just don't think. I know he worked on conditioning last year. He was getting there. He was playing more. He just doesn't strike me as a guy that you're going to be able to put out there. And even if you do put him out there, he might just be a space eater, and he's not going to produce much for you, and you don't want that. So I'm not going to say he's a bust, but I would probably be open to saying we might have drafted him a little too soon. And then he also then goes on to say Nolan Smith is a bust. I don't think Nolan Smith, that's way too early. And I mean, we knew that there was a chance that Nolan Smith was going to be kind of, fragile. And we knew that the pick was questionable. There's a lot of us, and LJ included, who, you watched Joey Porter Jr. at that position and you didn't take him. You decided to go with what was more of like a luxury pick for you and something to add to your already plethora of defensive linemen and edges and linebackers, whatever you want to call them. I don't think Nolan Smith's a bust, but I mean, I hope he comes around. We definitely need Nolan Smith to come around, or the need at linebacker just continues to grow.
He admitted it. He's trolling a little bit.
He is trolling, but I mean, I think there's a lot of people who truly are speaking this way of Nolan Smith. Not so much Jordan Davis yet, but more Nolan Smith. And I mean, the pick was questionable. We questioned it at the time as well. So.
All right, let's get to the last pick. It's in the 6th round. The Eagles do not have a 7th round pick this year. Pick number 210 in the 2024 NFL Draft. The Philadelphia Eagles select Ainias Smith, wide receiver from Texas A&M. Here's your wide receiver 3. Kind of can be your gadget guy in this Kellen Moore offense. You can play him out the backfield, put him in the slot. Like, Smith has the chance to be a really explosive player in the NFL. Probably can return kicks and punts if necessary. And we talked about it on Saturday that like Covey was good at returning punts, but that's all he really does. And again, they didn't really give him the opportunity to go out there on offense, so we don't really know what he can do on offense. But if with the rules different for kickoff return and whatnot, you want somebody that can kick return, punt return, and be a weapon on offense. And I think Ainias Smith has that opportunity. He's going to be an explosive player. Wherever you put him on the field, slot, backfield, outside, bubble screens, whatever it is, get the ball in his hands and he can make a play. So Ainias Smith out of Texas A&M.
I personally don't think Ainias Smith will be there in the 7th round, but I do know that it's
just saying
6th. But I don't know. I don't think he'll be there at pick 210, but I do know his value's kind of dropping because, like you said, like you're probably gonna have to manufacture the touches for him. He's kind of like, he can probably do punt returns and kick returns for you, but he's kind of one-dimensional in regards to you got to find a way to put the ball in his hand and then he'll do the rest. So it'll be interesting to see, and it'll be interesting to see what Kellen Moore thinks he could use Britton Covey for in his offense, because obviously we know the offense last year just wasn't working. Brian Johnson just was not finding the answer. He wasn't putting the players in the right positions to succeed. And maybe there's a world where Britton Covey can make that roster and be more than just a punt returner. We're going to have to wait and see. He was able to do a lot of it when in Utah in university, but is that going to be something that can translate into the NFL? Probably another guy you have to manufacture touches for. So you just got to weigh the pros and cons out there. But I had Ainias Smith in many mock drafts like that I kind of played around with earlier in the offseason. So I'm not opposed to it. I don't mind the pick. But I took Jermaine Burton. I think that they should go wide receiver a little earlier and try and really lock down the wide receiver 3 position. But we'll see how Howie views that, especially after putting money into so much money into Devontae Smith. And then what are you going to do with AJ Brown? Are you going to extend him and give him some more money, or what is going to come of that? That'll be the interesting scenario there. For me, I guess I wanted to do that. When I made this pick, I was like, man, I am so glad I stopped at 2 Penn State players, because LJ would just roast me all night. But I went with interior offensive lineman Hunter Norzad from Penn State. He came from the Ivy Leagues, where he played the right tackle position for 2 seasons. Then he moved over to Penn State, where he played a season at left guard. And then last season, he played a season at center. So this is a type of guy who you can move all around, who can be that fill-in. He's played the right tackle position if you really need someone in a major pinch. He's played the center position if anything goes wrong at the center position. And he's played left guard. He can probably play right guard. If he played right tackle, I promise you he can probably play right guard as well. So he just brings so much versatility, and he can be one of those guys that you can bring in. I don't think in the NFL he would be a tackle, but he's definitely someone who can work along that interior offensive line and play any of those positions when you need him to play those positions. So I went with Hunter Norzad as my 210th pick.
All right, got a couple offensive linemen. I went with a couple of cornerbacks. So to recap my Eagles only mock draft, and again, this includes 0 trades. In the first round, Kool-Aid McKinstry, cornerback out of Alabama. In the second round, Edgerrin Cooper, linebacker from Texas A&M, and Cooper Beebe, offensive lineman from Kansas State. In the 4th round, the Eagles go corner again, Kyrie Jackson, cornerback out of Oregon. And in the 5th round, they go Kenny Logan, safety out of Kansas. And with the other 2 5th-round picks, Eric All, tight end out of Iowa, and Christian Boyd, defensive tackle out of Northern Iowa. And to wrap it up in the 6th round, Anais Smith, wide receiver out of Texas A&M. Connor, remind us who you selected.
Where at pick 22, I went Alabama cornerback Kool-Aid McKinstry. The first of 3 picks we picked the same. Pick 50, Texas A&M linebacker Edgar Cooper. Pick 53 was Kansas edge Austin Booker. Pick 120, another Alabama product, wide receiver Jermaine Burton. Pick 161, the first of 2 Penn State players that LJ loves, tackle Caden Wallace. Pick 171, Oregon State's Keaton Oladapo. Pick 172, Northern Iowa's Christian Boyd. And pick 210, Penn State interior offensive lineman / all-encompassing offensive lineman Hunter Norzed.
Versatility can play a big role, and obviously having Jeff Stoutland wouldn't hurt. So, of my picks, which one is your favorite that I took for the Eagles to take?
I'm going Edgar Cooper. I mean, I think the linebacker position just needs to be addressed so badly, and we're so like, what do we have in Nolan Smith? We're not sure. What do we have in Devin White? We're not sure. What do we have in who's going to come in? Because I think after the draft, we're going to see him bring in another linebacker or 2 to compete. And they're really going to test out those interior linebacker positions through camp to really try and get some good competition going and get the most out of them. So I really think that they need to draft a linebacker. They have to address it. It's a good draft to have 2 day 2 picks at 50 and 53, because I think that's where you can grab one of those linebackers and you're not breaking the bank to get the linebacker. And if you can get the number 1 linebacker in Cooper, he can be a guy who's going to be on your team for at least 4 years, the rookie contract, plus I would hope to see plus years on that as well. So I like the Cooper pick the most.
I agree. So I'm not going to pick any of the 3 that we did the same, because obviously like we agree. I'm going to go with Jermaine Burton. Being an Alabama fan, when Alabama finally let Jalen Milroe throw the ball, one thing, Milroe has an arm, and Burton was able to get open downfield. So that will be an intriguing, 3rd receive option for the Eagles. It took him a little, like he played at Alabama for 2 years. After transferring from Georgia, it took him a little bit to get going in that and under Saban and in that Alabama system. But he has a chance. I think you kind of put it out there. And 8 touchdowns, led Alabama in receiving. So there's a chance for him to maybe make a role as a third slot type of receiver in the NFL.
I think he could even go on the outside. Like you can use him either way. And I think that the point is to find another outside, receiver to pair across from Devontae Smith so that you can use A.J. Brown as a slot guy, the inside guy who's getting all those yards after the catch. And what intrigues me the most about Jermaine Burton is like we've seen, and we see it often, where, Jalen Hurts will uncork that long ball, and Jermaine Burton, any of these long ball guys have questionable hands from time to time, but I mean, nothing can get to the level that we've seen with Quez Watkins. That was frustrating enough where I think Jermaine Burton will give the effort, will put the effort in. And if you get a drop here or there, that happens. But at least we know the effort's there. It's the type of player. In all fairness, if I were to pick not one of the 3 that we agreed on, I would pick Anais Smith, because I think it all comes back to, we know what we have in A.J. Brown. We know what we have in Devontae Smith. We just have never been able to figure out that wide receiver 3 position and find a guy who can really complement them and work with them to take some weight off of their shoulders. We saw it for 1 year with Quez Watkins, and everyone was like, maybe, and then he just busted completely. So, I mean, could the answer be in-house? I liked Paris Campbell coming out. There hasn't been anything in there in the NFL for me to sit there and say with any confidence he's the answer. Devontae Parker's Devontae Parker. He's going to be the opposite of like a Jermaine Burton. Jermaine Burton will get open running down the field. Devontae Parker will get open going up over the cornerbacks to make that 50-50 catch for you. So very different players that they would have if they went this direction. Same with Anais Smith. Very different direction they would go. I think they do have to test some different things and see what might stick at the wide receiver 3 and 4 spot, because you can't sit there and not believe in them ever. And you saw that Jalen Hurts stopped believing in a guy like Quez Watkins, and it led to him forcing or attempting to force a lot of balls in to AJ Brown and to Devontae Smith that were extremely hard to catch. So I would like to see that wide receiver 3 position addressed majorly. So
Yep. So it'll be interesting what happens on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Round 1 kicks off at 8 p.m. 8 p.m. Eastern time Thursday night. We are going to put our picks out on our Twitter page at Kelly Green Hour, and we want you to vote. Let us know who do you think drafted better for the Philadelphia Eagles. With the draft Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, we'll be back next week to give a recap. Probably Tuesday, maybe. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. Recaps and grades. And I guess we should take a moment to say that if you're just sitting there watching the draft on TV, you might as well flip on the Edge of Philly Sports channel, because they have a live watch party with 5 esteemed hosts. Me and you are not a part of it, but there are 5 really great hosts who are going to break down each pick. So, if you're tired of hearing the same old ESPN NFL Network guys, you can put them on in the background on mute and listen to the awesome crew over at Edge of Philly Sports. I can't remember what time they're going live. I feel terrible, but when the
Probably
draft
8
starts,
because the
they
draft
will be
starts at 8.
there. I was going to say at least 8 o'clock, although they may start earlier. So when the draft starts, they will definitely be starting as well.
Yes, I was part of that last year. It was fun. But yeah, so go to once we get this up after we're finished, go to our Twitter page at Kelly Green Hour and vote Connor's picks, vote my picks, and even let us know your thoughts and, your favorite pick, the best pick, the worst pick, and whatnot. And then we will be back next week with a recap, and we'll grade the draft and all of the trades and nonsense that goes on throughout the NFL draft. Thank you all for tuning in. As always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJHarrell54. And follow Edge of Philly Sports on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook at Edge of Philly Sports. Thanks for all the comments. We'll be back next week. Enjoy the draft this week. It's the start. It's pretty much the start of the off season. Oh, I guess free agency started it, but this really gets us going because rookie OTAs and the schedule will be coming out soon. And then camp starts, and then we'll get the preseason games. And before you know it, the Eagles, it's September 6th, and the Eagles will be in Brazil facing the Green Bay Packers. For Connor, I'm LJ. Thank you for tuning in to the Kelly Green Hour.